Hello and welcome everyone. This is a new episode of Score Sheet. Today it's going to be completely dedicated to football. Football, the most popular game worldwide. We cannot deny that whenever it comes to sports fans, football is going to have the lion's share. But football is an industry. And now this word is being said, or this statement is being said all over the world. Why? How this industry can be improved, how the wheel of production in football, which is different than in any other field, could be here in Egypt something else. Can we change expertise? Can we know more about the experiences of the others? Should we learn only from the Africans, which I should say became on the top of the headlines of many world magazines worldwide when it comes to the African football? A lot of questions, and I promise exclusive and comprehensive answers from my dear guest live here in the studio, Mr. Diaa Salah, our sports management expert. Sir, we do have a lot of questions. Ready?
I'm totally ready, Nermeen.
And right after the short break, I'm going to be back, so stay tuned only on Nile TV International. Welcome back. This was our dear guest, and here live in the studio he is going to be with us for the coming 50 minutes to speak in detail about his experience in football and in sports management in specific regarding this game. But first let's have our dear guest, Mr. Diaa Salah, how to introduce him to you, to all our dear viewers all over the globe. Sir, who is Diaa Salah when it comes to sports? When was the turning point when you've decided that sports is going to be more than a career, more than is something which is going to occupy the lion's share of your life? Let's know first your experience regarding football and regarding sports in general.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for the wonderful intro that you've done.
You're most welcome.
And thank you very much for having me as a guest today. Like you said at the beginning, when people say if sports is an industry, that word clicked to my mind long time ago. Mm-hmm. I played professional football in Canada, in London and in England.
Yeah.
And during my stay in England, I finished my career, mm-hmm. and then I sort of went into coaching, football coaching. And I did my level 1 coaching. In
a very early age, I think?
Yes, I was 27 at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't make it in a professional league in London, mm-hmm. because of the work rate and the physical fitness of the players at that time in London was very high.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I had an operation on my knee, so that slowed me down a little bit. So I thought, you know what, I would go into coaching. Mm-hmm. I did my level 1 coaching, and then I thought that's not what I really want to do. Mm-hmm. At that time, it hit me that the football clubs that I've been around, football is not just what's happening on the pitch at that time.
Yeah.
And so that kind of pushed me to go into management. Mm-hmm. So after I came back to Egypt, I did my Fifa Diploma in sports management. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was a bit lucky to be running a football club here in Egypt, who spent a couple of years in the Premier League. Mm-hmm. And I had the chance to practice what I studied.
Okay.
And at the time...
As a what? As a coach?
No, I was head of the football division.
Okay.
And a board's member in the football club. And at that time, it sort of gave me the privilege to start practicing.
What was your job description there, sir? What was your mission in specific?
Well, at the time being, when I first took over the sports division or the football division at the place, it was very important for me to explain to the board that we can make money out of football. And you know, when you talk to board members of national companies and you tell them we will be able to generate money, that's what they want to hear.
Sure.
Not just spending money. And maybe that will take us a little bit back, where at that time I actually was able to practice a couple of models, and we actually generated some good money at that time through our youth division. And we also did the African model, where we got a couple of African young players from abroad, from Ghana. We trained them, but we did not succeed in selling them as much the way we wanted to. But it was a beginning of learning how to generate different sources of revenue for your football club, not just spending.
Yep.
So that was my beginning in the sports industry.
You know why I've asked this question in specific? Because I don't know why I think that it's too tough to turn from a player to a coach or to something else in the career of football or in the career of the sport you were practicing in a very short time, relatively in a short time. Because this, it needs the a change of the formation of your way of thinking. It's relaunching your life once again, relaunching everything and in detail. Because I think that this was one of the main reasons, for example, of the failure of some of our young coaches who turned to be coaches in a year or something.
Yes, definitely what you're saying is right. The thing is, Nermeen, that you really have to know what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. And it's not necessary that because you played professional football, that means that you're going to be a professional coach or be a good coach.
Or even if I were the Vialli of Egypt?
Even if you were the Vialli of Egypt, they used to call me the Egyptian Vialli when I was in the Queen Park Rangers. Not even the best football coaches were good players. I mean, if you look at today at Arsene Wenger, you look at Sir Alex Ferguson, Jose Mourinho, they never played at the top of the professional leagues in their lives, yet they are rated some of the best football coaches in the world due to their achievements.
This is going to take us back to the start of this episode. Football is an industry.
Yes.
Why and how? Why? Because many would say that this is going to make football lose its taste. Because when it was only a sport that's spontaneous, without planning, without these learned tactics, when it was only talents, it was more enjoyable.
Yes.
But when it turns to be industry with the statistics, with tactics, with plans, with the strategy, stuff like that, no, it's going to lose its taste. How to have this equation, to have football as an industry with revenues, with marketing, with profits, God forbid, without losses, or if losses I can manage how to do,
Sure.
and in the same time not to lose its taste as the most popular game.
Sure. Of course, football is an industry, and like you said, we've been hearing that word a lot these days. But before we go into a little bit of details, let's go back a little bit to 1863 in England, when football was first developed and codified. At that time, the federation at that time tried not to commercialize the football game, and they just wanted the football to be something for amateurs.
Do we need this right now?
Sure. This is a part of a presentation that we give in the FIFA courses right now.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit about the history of football.
Okay.
And that's just because instead of saying it's an industry, no, we have to know why and how it turned into an industry. Football at that time, when it started getting a little bit popular, businessmen started getting involved. In the clubs, and they started buying football teams. And then the next phase, Nermeen, about 1983, three of English football clubs joined the stock market. And it was sort of a shortcut for the people to start, investing money and making money. And at that time, the game was spreading very much in Europe and in England. And the federations in London and in Europe were trying to minimize the amount of money that was involved in the game at that time. And they wanted it to be purely a sport. But of course, with the huge demand on the games and the traffic and the people that were showing up, the fans, it wasn't that easy. It turned into a big revenue stream for the businessmen, and then they were starting to think, you know what, this is a potential. Businessmen, they can smell profits, much more than anybody else. And one of the old businessmen in year 2000, his name was Simon Johnson. He was a 32-year-old boy, and he went out and he bought Crystal Palace Football Club for 10 million sterlings. And that was maybe a big message to people at that time, because he failed big time with the club, and he wasn't able to run the club the way he thought it was supposed to be run. And at that time, they were starting to think, okay, now I can buy a club, but I cannot manage a club. Okay, and it's the same thing as in multinational companies today. When you come into a multinational company, you don't just operate. No, you have to go through budgets, you have to go through finances, through law. There's lots of different models in the setup of a multinational company that we have to practice the same way on the football side. In 2008 came in the big players that bought Chelsea, they bought Man City, and this is where they had to start operating in a proper way. So it's not just spending, buying players, and that's it. No, UEFA came in the following year and said, okay, guys, now rich people are coming into the game too much. They're spending too much cash, and it's not fair for the other smaller teams. Okay, so they announced something called the financial fair play, which basically meant that you're not allowed to spend more money than what you earn through your operations. Okay. So they tried to make this law to make the teams be more involved in football for longer periods of time, and to promote the fair play between them and the smaller teams that cannot afford to go out and buy, the big stars.
Fair enough.
Yes. So that's where the football clubs had to sit down and study and say, okay, now we want to buy players, we have to generate revenue. So generation of revenue, that's the next big.
What am I called to invest in players? In a way.
Some clubs, they look at investment in players. Like there's several clubs in Africa and in Europe where they go out and they scout the younger players. They sort of develop them for a couple of years and then they sell them. So the aim of these clubs are not very much to win the leagues or anything like that, but they just want to generate profit and generate cash flow for their clubs through the young players. Okay.
So this can be a source of income for some of the African countries in specific. So what we've heard about what's going on in Côte d'Ivoire, in Ghana, in Cameroon, in Senegal, I mean, there are families who are now just thinking about their kids that they are going to move to Europe when they are only 16 or something like that, and they are going to continue their way, and this is going to be their career. True?
Yes, very much true. Not only the families in Nermeen, but also there's a lot of big football clubs in Europe have their academies in these African countries as well. Feyenoord, PSG, they have football academies down there in Africa.
I think Latin America was the first to do so.
Latin America, they had, of course,
same story.
Same story. But when they went to Africa, they went for the African model because of the fatigue, the physique of the African players.
Physical fitness.
Yes, definitely. And they thought that this was going to be their edge. But today, the game has changed so much. And today, not only the football clubs are not just looking physical fitness in their game as well. They're looking for the talent part,
Sure.
and
the mental fitness.
they want the players to be more technical and talented.
More professional, I should say.
Yes, yes.
And to be professional since an early age, it's going to be that easier for them to continue this way, especially in Premier Leagues, especially in Europe and stuff like that. And I don't know why I felt this that much. In specific in big events, in the UEFA, in the Confederations Cup, of course in the World Cups.
Yes.
You know, it's more important for the agents more than anybody else. I mean, for example, Honduras, Chile, Latin America in this last edition of the World Cup, they were dominating. It's not because of their results, of their surprising results, but who is going to move from their teams to the outside. And if we are going to speak about the Arabs or about Africa, the Algerians. The Algerians did great by then, and it was a surprise, I think, for everybody. It's not only for the Arabs, the Africans, but for the whole world. If you agree with
yes, no, I totally agree. Maybe the Algerians had a little
different story.
Edge, yes, because they knew how to talk a foreign language very well, French. They were very much involved on their side. It was easy for them to go back and forth and to get exposure to the other different leagues. And I think them and the Moroccans as well. They were at the time they had some professional football players that played abroad, and we had this issue, I think, with some of our Egyptian players that went abroad. They had a good chance, but they weren't able to cope.
There is some racism here, and we know that the Europeans, when they think about the African football, they think about black African football. And if they are going to move to North Africa, then they are going to say North Africa. They are not going to say Africa in general.
I think what you're saying, maybe it was in the past, but today we have lots of Africans that are playing in European. We have Nini, we have Salah. They're playing.
And before we have Karim Benzema, we have Benzema,
yes.
we have a lot, and from
exactly. And today all of the big football federations are trying to kick racism out of the game, and they're trying to promote fair play and all of that. So I think racism is something that one day will disappear.
I'm not saying racism. I'm saying to a little bit discrimination. Because I'm searching for a black African player because he is going to be that fit, he's going to be that tough, he is going to be that fast.
Yes,
stuff like that.
That was something in the past again, but today I think that the clubs are not looking for that big build anymore. They're looking for the more talented players, the more skillful players, because if you look at a team like Arsenal, for example.
We are going to speak in detail about Arsenal because this is our model. But when you were talking to me and when I was trying to recall some of the names, I would prefer to mention, for example, the Touré guys.
Touré and his brother
the guys,
Touré.
The Touré guys.
Yes. Samuel Eto'o, yes. These are all players that made it to the top league, and because of their colors, they're Africans, and they succeeded very well, and they're very good ambassadors as well. And
this is exactly what I was trying to say.
They're promoting this part of the game, yes.
Regarding our teams, regarding our clubs, to be accurate, we do have a lot of talents all over Egypt.
Definitely.
And we do have a lot of big names in the world of sports management, but from, I should say, the old schools.
Yes.
And because of this, unfortunately, we are not in the position we should occupy when it comes to Africa in comparison to the African football.
Definitely.
Unfortunately, we are depending all the time on our history. When we have started playing football, Al Ahly was established 1907, Al Zamalek was established just a few years later than that, and how many times we have been involved into blah blah such stuff. But when it comes to reality, no, there's something wrong.
Yes.
Can we just have a little comparison? Or at least can we have a model, Arsenal? Why Arsenal is Arsenal or why Arsenal is considered as a model. And here I'm not talking at all about results. I'm talking about the setup.
Okay.
Would you please elaborate on this?
Let me elaborate a little bit. It's very good to have history, and I'm a true believer that if you don't have a history, you won't have a future. It's very good to have big histories in your bag. Ahly and Zamalek are very, very big clubs today.
Yeah.
I personally believe it's a matter of management, Nermeen, that we are not managing these clubs in the proper way that they should be set up. There's a lot of young talents, like you said. Today, FIFA are giving a diploma here in Egypt about sports. Unfortunately, the graduates from the course do not get a chance to work full-time in football or in any of the other sports. These are a little bit of what we give to our students in their presentations about how to reach the success that these foreign clubs have reached. And this is not something that just happens overnight. It's a lot of hard work from different sides, from the club itself, from the coaches, and from the players. And when it comes down to management, they all have to sit together and define what is their vision, and they have to work hard to achieve what they want to do.
Should all those involved into the sports management of a team or of a club, should they come from a sports background? They should have been playing football before, stuff like that? Or?
No, definitely not. Just like what we said about the coaching
club organization?
About the club, what we said about the coaching and the setup of the clubs. And today, the football clubs have to be set up like a multinational company.
Yeah.
They have to have the club CEO. They have to have their finance department. They have to have their marketing department. They have to have their legal department. They have to have their stadiums department. And that is apart from the technical part, which is the coach and the whole setup of the whole technical assistant team. When you back to what you said about Arsenal and then not about talking about the results or anything like that. Arsene Wenger, when he came to the club in 1996, he came with a different vision towards the British or the English football, and he started, creating a new, how can you say it, a new flair of football, which wasn't totally depending on the physique of the English players. At that time, English players were very, very robust and very strong but they lacked the talent and the technical part of the game. So when Arsene came to the club at that time, he started introducing that you belong to a club, not to just a team. And there's a message that the whole club has to give to all of the supporters. And it's not only what's happening on the pitch and that's it. No, it's more than just what's happening. He came in, he introduced the holistic part of the game where he had to introduce diets to the players.
The medical staff.
The players had to sleep well. He introduced nutrition to the players.
Things were not there before?
It was not. The English players at that time used to eat a lot. They used to drink a lot after the games. And it was just a part of their culture. And when he came in at that time, this was very new to the sport of football at that time. And then also he started developing himself as well. When the time went on, today there's a big part of the football sport which has to do with the performance analysis and the data that these coaches today use for the development of their players and for the scouting of new players.
The analysis and collecting the data and analyzing the data, it's his job or one of his assistants'
No,
job?
one of his team members, of course. One of the team members, but he has to be shown this data and it helps him, taking decisions on certain players, even when they're scouting new players from abroad.
Scouting,
very
another
important.
Story.
Yes.
Another story.
Definitely.
Because I know that it's very unfair in Egypt to speak only about Cairo, Alexandria, or about big cities and the talented players, the young players. They're all over Egypt. There are very talented players all over Egypt in Delta, Governorate, in Upper Egypt. But unfortunately, we do not have the eyes to catch these talents scouting.
Yes.
I'm sorry for the interruption, but this is for me a big point.
No, of course, I totally agree with you. Today, again, it's the mission of the football clubs today. When you look at the big clubs, the top 4 clubs in Egypt, how many of them, go through their youth setup and promote players from the youth setup? Rarely happens these days. They all focus on winning trophies. They want to win medals. So they don't mind spending some money just to take the shortcut, like they say.
You know, our veteran sports analyst said, of course they were joking, since the boys stopped playing in the streets, we are not that much that clever or that successful in sports. Of course they were joking, but the good old days.
Yes. Well, in Latin America they still play football in the streets. We still have players that play in the street today, but again, it's just having the patience to develop these young players, because like I said, the clubs, they just want to look for quick success and they want to win games and that's it. But going back to developing players, I don't think that they have the time.
Going back to coaching,
yes,
the coaching staff, at least it's one of the key reasons behind the success of any team and any sports, by the way. It's not only in football. But I'm not here going to speak about the many changes we had in this season of the EPL, because this needs another whole episode.
Yep.
I don't remember even not only about Al Ahly and the Zamalek, but Al Ismaili, for example. Ismaili or the Egyptian Samba, who were once the Egyptian Samba, who were once the generators, who were all the time giving players to Al Ahly in specific, and I know why. This was an era. There is an era where Manuel José was here. I think he took every single talent in Al Ismaili to be included under Al Ahly umbrella. This is another story. Mr. Diaa, how many members should form the coaching staff? And according to what? According to the popularity of the team, according to if this is a newcomer to the EPL or the main competition or no, according to the players themselves. I mean, if they are veteran players, then they need a veteran coach or a foreign coach. If they are that young, they need someone who is closer to them. Criteria of selection, number of the members of this coaching staff, and if we can use Arsenal as a model.
A very, very long question to answer.
We have time.
If you look at it, we have to look at it like from the company point of view. If we're going to handle this question as an industry, and you have to go ahead and budget. If you have a proper budget to hire 15, 20 coaches,
why not?
Then why not? 1980s, when Egyptians started performing their technical staff, they used to have a coach, a goalkeeper coach, and an admin.
Yeah.
That used to do all the reservations, the traveling stuff, and like that. Today, it's the setup has developed in a very, very different way. They have 2, 3 coaches, they have assistants, they have a goalkeeper coach, they have physiotherapists now, they have doctors involved. But again, these are only for the clubs that can afford. Unfortunately, some of the poorer clubs that don't have the financial power.
Then only one should wear many hats.
You're right. Some of these clubs, they go play football matches abroad, away from their club, from their city, and they don't have a doctor with them.
Wow.
It's again down to their financials. Today, some of the Egyptian teams are doing very well. If we talk about Masr Makassa in specific, their head coach is doing a marvelous job in setting up his staff. He's been using performance analysis data. which he gets reports of his team and the opponent's team as well on the spot right after the matches. So most of his selections or his acts are not something that is just done out of what he sees with his eye or randomly. No, it's based on figures and I think we have.
It's a strategy.
It's a strategy, and again, process. And again, I mean, the beauty there is that the club itself and the management are totally supporting Ihab Galal, and they're giving him this chance. Some of the other clubs, they've been introduced to use performance analysis with their head coaches, and they did not look into.
Whenever there's a new vision, many people would resist having a new vision.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. You're right.
But sir, here there's something which really rings a bell. I don't know why. There are some coaches like Ihab Galal, for example, whom I really respect, would do great with the team, and when they move to another team, they are not that good.
Very good.
For example, Talat Youssef, when he was with the police or with the Ittihad, not as with any others. Hani Ramzi, when he was with the Olympic team, with the National Olympic team, he was doing fine, but when he moved from this Olympic team to other teams, he was not that Hani Ramzi we knew.
Yes.
Today, for example, I do respect what Ahmed Nahas is doing with Aswan, or was doing with Aswan. For example, Zizou or Abdelaziz Abdeshafi, whenever he is just called to shoulder the responsibility over Ahli for a while, and he knew that he is only in a period of time he is going to be not sacked, he is going to move once again to the sidelines, and someone else is going to be in charge. You know, there are differences, and I don't know why whenever you are in this position, when you move from this position to the other, you are a different person.
Definitely.
Do you have an explanation?
Yeah, this is not only something that happens here in Egypt. I mean, if you look at, for example, Manchester United, one of the world's largest clubs today, they had Sir Alex Ferguson for a long time, and then David Moyes came in for a year, he left, and then Louis van Gaal came in for another year, and he left. And I mean, you're talking about maybe the same board was there, but again, it all comes down to the coach's ability to work with his players, with the board itself, and with the dressing room, or with the players that are inside the dressing room. And it's all a challenge that, you know, that the coaches face on a daily basis. It's not an easy job for you to come in and work with 19, 20 new players, and then you have to work with the board at the same time, and then and to succeed. But no, it's a very difficult job for them to come in and prove themselves. Today, Moyes left, Louis van Gaal left, and now we have
let me move
Jose
to
Mourinho today, which he lost today. They drew today against in the Premier League, which is a very tough job for a very good coach.
Easier or harder to be the coach of a national team or a team? A club in a country, I mean.
It's different. A national team head coach has a wider range of a variety of players to choose from. But unfortunately, when you're a team coach, you only come in and you work with the 20, 22 players that you have, and you cannot, you know, change a lot with them. So it's a bit tougher. And then with the national team, you will have a game once every 2-3 months. Maybe you prepare for a tournament that lasts for a month. But with a team coach, no, you have to be involved day in, day out. You will have sometimes 2 games a week.
But the sense of responsibility when it comes to a national team, it's tougher. It's
tougher because of the crowd expectation, and you're probably demanded more from the whole country to perform better than what you do as a club. But at the end of the day, you know, coaching is coaching, and all coaches want to win, but it's the tools that they use to win. That's the difference.
A key word here is harmony. whenever you,
Of course.
whenever you are able to have this harmony between you and your players, and between the players and them, to have this harmony among the players themselves, and to include professionals coming from abroad, for example, with teams or with national teams, this is another story. Do you think that this word harmony was the reason behind the failure of many coaches, not only here in Egypt but worldwide?
Yes, definitely. It's a very, very big word, a very big challenge too. Because today, when you look at the European coaches today, they have different nationalities in their team. And today, management is not only about managing your players on the pitch. No, it's managing them outside of the pitch as well. And if you look at different coaches today, they have different management styles amongst their team and towards their players. You look at the Premier League, for example, and you look at Jurgen Klopp and you look at Conte today. After their games, they would enter the pitch and start hugging their players, you know, to congratulate them on a performance. Yeah. While you have other coaches that once the ref blows the whistle, he leaves direct to the dressing room. So it's a matter today of how to coach these players. And when you go down into details, managing the players themselves, some of the players refuse to hear criticism from their coach in front of the rest of the team. So it's a lot of work that the head coach has to know how to build that harmony inside the dressing room, and how to...
And some players, they do have their own way of thinking and their own behaviors. Till the moment, I don't know how this Zlatan Ibrahimovic is being dealt with, whether in Paris Saint-Germain or in his current club. There are players, of course they're very much talented and they will be forgiven for everything they are doing because of this talent, but as you've kindly mentioned, this is a way. But this would take us to having a psychiatrist.
Of course.
Because having a psychiatrist is another story. Then it's not only a nutritionist, it's not only a physician, but a psychiatrist
very important.
is also needed.
Yep, very, very important part of the game. I have a friend of mine, he used to be the psychiatrist of Tottenham Football Club. And we used to talk a lot about his jobs with one of the specific players. He used to play for Arsenal, Emmanuel Adebayor, and how he left and then went off to Man City and then went to Tottenham, and then he did not perform the same as he used to in the past, and he went beyond telling me some inside information of how he used to work with this player to get him back to concentrate on his football and to start performing like he used to. Today, social media is crazy. All of the players are showing to all of the crowd what they're doing in their private life and what they're doing outside of the pitch. And the coach has to put some severe rules to control all of that. So, and all of this distracts the players themselves, you know. And for a coach to control that, he has to know what is social media, for example, what the players do on their spare time.
The social media is something else now, and of course it entered every single field in our life. And when it comes to sports, with all those fans, when we have started this episode, we are speaking about football at the most popular game. The most popular games, meaning billions of people are to watch one screen if it is the World Cup, for example. So those 1 billion, at least 90% of them are going to move to their accounts on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram to just have a comment, to say a statement, to describe a player, even to insult a player, you know, something like this. Suarez was named the biter, I think, for months after the World Cup. I myself called him the biter more than once, because he was then...
yeah, he did it as well when he was in London, in Liverpool playing as well. He bit a player.
This needs more than one psychiatrist. Let's go to your experience in Arsenal when it comes to the tickets, when it comes to just turn to be a fan and to attend a match. This is another experience. Before going into this, I should say something which made me really sad. When I know that, I don't know if you know that Mohammed Youssef, our veteran coach, is coaching in Baghdad, in Iraq. With all what's going on in Iraq, the Iraqi Premier League is going on with fans. And there are fans there filling the standings. Who is that and what's he doing?
Well, that a month and a half ago, I was lucky enough to go and attend the Arsenal-Chelsea match at the Emirates Stadium. It was my first visit to the Emirates Stadium because when I was living there, we used to play at Highbury. And I sort of did a small documentary or a small video about the easiness of entering a stadium. The stadium there is one of the new modern stadiums in Europe. They have more than almost 60-something thousand fans per match. I thought that I had to go there a bit early so I can catch my seat or I can avoid the crowd. But I think I went too early, which was an hour before the game.
An hour before the game, it's too early.
It was way too early. I went in. I was lucky enough to have my wife with me. She did the video, by the way.
Hello.
That was my first view of the pitch of the Emirates Stadium.
Wow, wow,
And
wow.
I mean, from the moment I had my ticket, it said which gate. There was like 25 gates around the stadium. I went into my gate number. I walked in. There was an usher who showed me the gate number. And then there was another usher, a young lady. You can see I went in, gave her my, I had a VIP ticket at that time. It was a season's ticket. She showed me to my seat. The seat had a number, and it was so easy, you know. There was no crowds at the doors, nothing. And I was very shocked because I attend lots of matches here in Egypt. And
when was that?
When? Well, before you know, when we had lots of crowds and stuff like that. But this video is just mainly to show you how simple it was, you know. And today, when we look at stadiums like
how simple, how civilized, how elegant.
Honestly, it was too simple and too elegant. And the beauty of it, Kaman, when you look at it and you look at this is a day out for your family. So if you want to take your family to the stadium, you can go to the merchandise shop. You can go and buy souvenirs for you, for your kids. Have a nice
something to eat,
have a nice meal, and it was very easy. And this is one of the newest stadiums in the world.
And of course, it's very safe.
Of course, yes. I mean, very safe.
Without questioning.
Yes, that was.
Despite the fact that this is the case only here. I mean, this catastrophe which took place, the tragedy which took place exactly a year ago in France, it was in a stadium.
Of course.
And whenever there is a terrorist attack, this is another story.
Yes, of course.
But 1 hour before the match, and this was very early?
Yes, it was very early.
Our fans went to Burj Al Arab Stadium before the Egypt-Ghana qualifier, I think 6 to 7 hours before.
Oh, that's too much. That was a bit tough.
It was great.
The
fans were great, and the civilized image we have sent to the whole world, and to the Egyptians it was also great. And before that, El Zamalek in its African Champions League match here, despite the fact that we are not going also to speak about results or stuff like that, but with the fans, with the spectators, with filling the standings, without having any single chaotic situation, this was great.
Yes.
By the way, ultras. Do we have ultras worldwide?
Of course.
How to differentiate between the nice word or the positive ultras and those who are just making chaos?
Let's agree on something that ultras everywhere are ultras. They support their die-hard fans, like they call them. They want their team to win all the time. They don't seek any type of violence.
They what, sir?
They don't seek.
They do not.
Yes, they do not seek the violence at the beginning. They're just there to die hard, support their team. Today, when you mix a little bit of politics into your sports, that's where everything goes wrong. We had ultras Ahli and Zamalek before. And I think they were all supporting the club. They were in the club, in the crowd, chanting and singing for their team, and that happens everywhere. In England, they have lots of fans. We saw the Euros that happened 3-4 months back, there was lots of violence that happened, and that happened one game, and it was over. And the security, I think they managed to control everything. But again, violence happens everywhere. But what I'm saying is that once you mix politics with any type of sport...
Well, violence is related to football, okay. I mean, violence is not accepted anyway. But when it's related to football, it can be managed. But when it's related to mixing politics with football, as you've kindly mentioned, or mixing politics with the sports in general, this is something which can never be
we try to avoid,
accepted.
And we want...
You know, I remember when Algeria qualified to the last edition of the World Cup, during the celebrations, 12 were killed. Killed, not injured, killed. I don't know when this virus is going to be demolished from our culture.
I think today, with the new modern security tools and measures that we have in stadiums, there's lots of different type of entering and exiting stadiums. Today we have to be very honest with ourselves. Are our stadiums well prepared to host this whole number of crowds or not? The organizations or the crowd management, like they say, do we have the experience how to manage the 70,
we managed
80?
them already. Cairo International Stadium used to have more than 100,000 spectators or fans all over the years before the 2010 revolution, 2011 revolution.
We had the huge amount of spectators in the stadium. But again, they had to go to the stadium 7-8 hours before the game.
This is another story. I mean, we were not in fears of violence or of violent crimes.
Yes,
or
of course,
stuff like that.
Yes, I agree. But what I'm trying to say is that when you have the proper setup in the stadium and the proper amount of gates that open, if there's an emergency, that you don't open only 1 or 2 doors to let the whole crowd dash through that door, then you have all of the accidents that will happen.
Realistic.
So we need to learn how to operate these stadiums as well.
Here, money talks.
Yes.
What you're talking about needs a lot of money. I mean, we have to spend a lot to reach this stage or this criteria.
Well, we need to educate. We need to educate people, the fans as well. There's a lot. Today, when I went to the Emirates Stadium, I did not see one police officer, even inside the ground. They're all ushers. They're all people that
and maybe volunteers too.
Volunteers that work. Yes, you're absolutely right. That want to be involved in the sport, and they just got the proper training, and that's it. The stadiums, again, are very much equipped, 25 to 30 gates around the whole stadium. So there's no rush or there's no bottleneck at a certain gate, you know. The fans were treated in a very, very respectful way.
Sure.
The machines, the tickets, I just scanned my ticket to the machine, and I took my ticket and I passed, and you know, it was just too convenient for me. You know.
Sometimes I feel that when the game is that popular, like the case with football, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yes.
I was honored to cover many modern pentathlon world championships, for example, being held here in Cairo and in Cairo International Stadiums, and I found hundreds of players, and of course coaching staffs, delegations from all over the world, hundreds, and I've not seen a single mistake. I'm not saying this because I've covered these championships or that they were being held here in Egypt, but the president of the International Union of Modern Pentathlon came to Egypt in 2016 8 or 9 times or something like that, and this was his own point of view. So why football? Is it because it's that popular? Are we paying the price of having a popular game?
Well, yes. I think what you're saying is you have a very valid point. Today, if I just don't want to go into too much, you know, politics about this, but today what I think is that it's just a problem, Nermeen, of bringing the right people for the right job. And
Yes.
once we have the right people doing the right job, I think things will be very smooth, and we will get on with the leagues. And
Well, Mr. Diaa, I want to speak more about FIFA. I want to speak more about this Infantino and what he's doing. I want to speak about what Infantino did with Vladimir Putin. I want to speak about 2018 World Cup in Moscow. I want to speak about St. Petersburg Stadium, which Putin said that he is going to be. It's going to be completed before the end of the year. I do have a lot of other questions, so we are going to leave you, sir, but with a promise to see you again in a new episode of Score Sheet.
it's my pleasure, and definitely whenever you want, just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to join.
Thank you very much for your input, sir. And by this we come to the end of this very special episode of Score Sheet. Till we meet again same time on Nile TV International. Many thanks for watching. On behalf of Dr. Muhammad Rabia, Amr Fathallah, the Studio 35 staff, and myself, Nermina Abdurrahman, always and forever, Assalamu alaikum.